we tend to infer things from the clues available around us. Now, when this inferring goes in positive way, when inferring um, is goes in correct way, then there is no problem. But what if the inferring, what you infer, is not proper? Then that is going to lead to your communication to a total failure. So in this way, that this inferring also causes a barrier or poses a grave barrier to communication. So I have given one example, friends, that is different comprehension of reality leads different person to look at the same object, place or thing in entirely different impression. Just and I've given just four photographs of school. First photograph, friends, that first on the corner left, that shows that how a school really is, how it is, how it really is. That a school is a building, there are rooms, blackboards, benches. But how does it appear to a student? The students on the top right side, the students see it as a jail. For students, it's not a good experience. They always want to run away from it. They always want to keep away from it. Yes, sometimes this happens. Now to parents, left side bottom, to parents, the same school, because they have left school and they know the luxury and legacies of school. For them, the school appears as a heaven, as a resort, as a retreat, as a place of retreat. And but to the teachers, how teachers look at the school, because it is the professional place where they have to go every day, and for teachers it appears just herding the sheep. So in this way, that is the same place. This is, friends, this is not serious, just I have given, don't take much seriously, but I have just chosen these things in order to drive my point home, that how this different comprehension of reality leads different person to look at the same object, place or thing in entirely different impression. So this is another barrier of communication. Now let us switch over to socio-psychological and cultural barriers. Friends, socio-psychological and cultural barriers are another most important barriers to be avoided in our communicative process, because, friends, we know man is a social animal. Man has man suppose a man who is healthy today and who is prone to communicate today, you might not find the same person and might find that person in another different mood tomorrow, because there is no permanency of moods, opinions, emotions, attitudes, even sometimes cultural diversities. Yes, nowadays the world has become a global village, and in this scenario of global village, we have to take care of cultural diversities. Then closed mind, we have to deal with people with closed mindset, even frame of reference, status consciousness, inattentiveness, so the source of communication, all these things also affect the course of our communication. So we must learn them, and we must try to avoid them while it comes to communicate effectively. So, friends, emotional. First, let us take the instance of attitudes, opinion, and emotions. Friends, when a person is angry, when a person is disturbed owing to some social circumstances, when a person is perplexed, when a person is excited, yes, in all such mental status, you would find it difficult to communicate with them. Even it is applicable to both the sender as well as the receiver. If the sender is perplexed, he won't be able to communicate well. Whereas how perfect the sender is, but if his audience, if the students are that is target audience, if for example, for a teacher, the students are the target audience. Okay, for a salesman, his prospective buyers are the target audience. So when target audience is not in proper mood or not in the proper emotive status, yes, the communication, that entire communication process gets affected. So this is the case of emotional status, attitudes, and opinions. First, now, as I told you earlier, that cultural diversities. Nowadays, friends, world, whole world, entire world has turned into a global village. Yes, we have to deal with the people at the global platforms. Yes, now at that time, one has to be very careful, just about this cultural diversities, because we know, friends, that what is decent, what is perfectly acceptable to in one culture may be considered inappropriate, immoral into another culture. For example, in just as in Japan, people bow to greet each other, whereas in Western culture, that is a hand is shook, just in order to be greeting, in order to greet the person. So these sort of cultural diversities may operate with that may act as a barrier to communication. So when a person has to communicate at the global level, or when the audience, and that is receiver and that is sender and the receiver, belong to different cultures, yes, care should be taken to overcome this sort of diversities, to learn what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Next is, friends, closed mind. Friends, sometimes in society, sometimes at our professional levels, we have to communicate with some people with closed mind. Or closed mind, the person would define, that is a person who thinks that whatever I know, whatever whatever I have. I don't need to be instructed. I don't need to be just advised. I don't require any sort of suggestions. Whatever I am doing. Yes. So when dealing with this sort of person with the closed mindsets, yes, it becomes quite difficult to communicate, friends, and it becomes a barrier to our effectiveness of our communication. So in that case, friends, what should be done? So first of all, friends, when you find or come across a person, or the audience which having such close mindset, yes, you have just to try to persuade that person that the communication that is done from from your side is not only on your benefits, but it is his benefit also, that why you are communicating is for the mutual goods. Secondly, just meet that person. Yes, meet that person in the half the way. Just uh, try to get convinced whatever he says. Then friends, then drive your arguments, or put your arguments in such a way that that person feels that whatever conclusion I have arrived to, that is as per my own thinking, my own views, not somebody else has. And in this way we can deal with closed mind. So this closed mindedness and this sort of things may act as barrier to communication, and a good communicator has to be very careful regarding all these things, and consciously we have to just take care of these sort of things. Next, friends, frame of reference. Friends, as we know that man is a social animal. Yes, and we have different and diversified upbringings, inheritance, even dispositions, natures. All these things, that is that our backgrounds also affect our performance in communication. So for example, a person would work very effectively when he is put to the close, that and he's given the deadlines. And some person, you would find that they find it difficult to work under pressure. Some would just get depressed when they find a sort of challenge. So different frame of reference operate within the person's behavior. So communicators have to take care of this frame of references, and this frame of references should not be discarded, friends, but this frame of references have to be used and utilized as a stepping stone to communicate it, in the human face. So that is also a case of socio-psychological barrier to communication. Next is status consciousness. Friends, we know that in society that is different status and different hierarchies are operate. That suppose within an organization there is a manager, then there is a clerk, then supervisors, the workers, and that is helpers. Yes. Now, when a person from a lowest hierarchy has to communicate with the person with the higher status, he feels jittery, he feels a sort of consciousness, and even sometimes he tries to avoid communicate. Yes, so this is status consciousness. When a person in a lower strata has to communicate with the person in the higher strata or in the highest rank, what happens? That is, he falters, he plants and replants, and just he falters. And according, just because of all these things, the person in the higher authority would not like to communicate well, or feels that the person is wasting his time. So this sort of status consciousness also operates, and that is to be overcome while communicating. Next is inattentiveness. Friends, another instance of a classroom that the teacher is trying to teach and there are students. You can see that there are students and they are not attentive. Yes, friends, inattentiveness. There are so many factors. That is, as I told you, noise or something external things that that act as distractors, and they take away. Sometimes when studies have noted that sometimes what happens, that is when you start communicating some new ideas to some adult mind, an adult mind becomes inattentive in order to seek, because an adult mind is never akin to changes. So when something new is introduced, the person will try to just seek some, or his mind, his subconscious mind will just find itself engaged in finding out and looking at the arguments to the new things. So in this way we find the people become inattentive, but the communicator has to assure and arrest the attention of his audience. Next, friends, faulty transmission. Faulty transmission is another barrier to communication, friends. That is, when a message is to be communicated, yes, we see that no message is communicated in a very nice and effective way, and the faulty transmission owing to the lack of selection of good encoding or good decoding at the part of receiver, and that finds its way into the communicative process, and the message does not reach to the target or to the receiver in toto. Yes, and this faulty transmission causes barrier to communication. Next in our list is, friend, poor retention. Friends, studies have noted that all the information communicated to the audience finds its retention up to only 50 to 45%. Yes, rest of the thing gets lost, forgotten, or is not given much importance, all these things. So in that case, that owing to this poor retention, our communication gets affected. So one has to take care, and in case of poor retention, or when some important messages are to be communicated, that they should be given in written form, or that is proper follow up is to be done so far as to assure that the owing to poor retention, the information has not got lost, and it is worked upon, it is executed nicely and properly. Another three, friends, socio-psychological barriers are the source of communication. Friends, sometimes it happens that when that is, the receiver's response would depend upon the source from where the communication is coming. Suppose you don't like a person, suppose you don't like a person, and that person is trying to communicate with you. Yes, whatever nice things, whatever favorable things he might be relating to you, might be telling you, might be giving you, but you should generate a sort of that why this man works with me, or wants just would like to give some benefits to me. So this happens. Next is conflicting goals. When the sender and the receiver when they operate with conflicting goals, communication is affected. And last but not least is the unsolicited communication. Friends, when communication is done, how important it is, but when it is done unsolicited, that the person does not expect to be communicated, and you put that communication, yes, that leads to failure to communication. So these were the barriers of communication, friends. Now let us look at the things that how can we overcome these barriers. Friends, overcoming the barriers is very simple. First, you know these barriers, you can overcome them with very simply. And the first uh, and foremost thing a communicator should do in order to make his communication free from any barriers, first of all, that is planning, friends. Plan your communication carefully. Yes, when you plan your communication, yes, there is, or you can minimize the barriers from that communication, and you can retain the effectiveness of communication. Secondly, know your receiver, friends, that to whom I am communicating. Yes, what is the social strata, what is the mental status, what is the mood, and what are the attitudes of my receivers. Knowing this, that would help me plan my message. Okay, and then listen more, speak less. That is another thing, that is let the receiver speak, that is allow or give them a sort of freedom to speak, that is to comment on the communication done on your part. So we can say, we can sum it up in like that, that the sender should make a note of the following, that who, first of all, to whom should the message go, he must learn. Then why am I communicating, what are my motives to communicate. Then what, that decide what to communicate, be clear about what you need to communicate. Then when, that is overcoming time and poor timing as barrier, that choose the best time for the optimum reception. Then how, that use language the receiver will understand, which is unambiguous. And where, that choose a location which will not interfere with the reception and understanding and acceptance of the message. So these are all the points one communicator should take note while communicating, and in order to overcome the barriers that operate within his communicative process.